lot of people laugh at cryptozoologists. They think it's just guys chasing Bigfoot or lake monsters. But the truth is, tracking animals based on eyewitness descriptions is complicated. There have been real cases where rare species were rediscovered because someone took strange reports seriously. My friend Jason and I have been into that world for years. We've driven across states chasing stories. Most of the time it ends with nothing more than blurry footage and disappointment. A couple years ago, Jason sent me a thread from a small cryptid forum. Ranchers in the Appalachian region of eastern Tennessee were reporting livestock disappearing. A few dogs, too. One post caught our attention. A rancher claimed something cleared a fence that was over 6 feet high. No digging underneath, no damage, just gone. Attached was a photo of a clump of coarse fur found near the pen. It didn't look like coyote fur. Too dense, too dark. The guy claimed it almost blended into shadows. I figured it was probably feral dogs or maybe someone exaggerating. Jason wasn't convinced, so we packed up gear, tents, thermal scope, night vision, trail cams, and headed toward a small rural community outside the Cherokee National Forest. We met the rancher the next afternoon. Older guy, straightforward, not dramatic. He told us one night the sheep started making noise. His dog barked once, then went silent. By the time he stepped outside, it was over. Several animals were gone. The dog was missing. Only the collar was left near the fence. He showed us the fur he'd collected. It had a strange texture, coarse but light at the tips. Under sunlight it looked charcoal gray. In shade it almost disappeared. We inspected the fence ourselves. It was tall, solid wood. No broken boards, no scrape marks. The ground showed normal tracks, livestock, boots, nothing else. Jason started getting excited. I started getting uneasy. Behind the property was a small tree line that led into thicker forest. We walked it. About 50 yards in, we found bones. Old ones, mostly intact. What stood out was how untouched they looked. No clear signs of chewing or scattering. And there was that smell again, the same scent from the fur. We decided to camp near the edge of the tree line that night. No campfire, just low profile. Around 1:45 a.m., I was on watch, using night vision, scanning between the woods and the ranch fence. At first I thought I was seeing heat distortion. Then I saw movement. Something large was moving along the ground near the tree line. It didn't walk upright. It didn't move like a deer. It almost looked like a dark mass shifting forward slowly. I nudged Jason awake. He took the night vision. He went completely silent. The shape stopped. Then it rose slightly and turned toward us. We flattened against the ground. My hands were shaking, but I kept the camera steady. 2 faint reflections caught the infrared. Eyes. The body shape didn't make sense. It looked flexible, like it could compress itself. It stayed there for what felt like forever. Then it lowered again and moved toward the fence. Instead of jumping, it pressed against the boards and climbed. Not with a leap. More like it adhered and pulled itself upward. Within seconds it was over. We heard distant livestock noise. Jason whispered for me to keep filming. A few minutes later it came back over the fence. This time it looked bulkier, roughly the size of a large German shepherd. But the proportions were wrong. The movement was controlled and quiet. The fence never creaked. It slipped back into the woods. We stayed frozen for another 10 minutes. At dawn, we packed up without talking much. Back home, We reviewed the footage. It wasn't clear enough to prove anything, but it was enough to show something was there. We uploaded the video to the forum. People accused us of editing, said it was just a bear filmed from a bad angle. Maybe it was, but I've seen bears, and this didn't move like one. To this day, I don't know what that thing was. All I know is that something was taking animals from behind a fence it shouldn't have been able to clear, and it knew exactly how to stay out of sight. At first, I didn't believe him. When he ran into our campsite, I thought he was drunk, or lost, or just messing with us. It was 2:07 a.m. I know that because I checked my phone right away. My friend Tyler and I were camping near a trail system that almost no one visits that time of year. Late September, cold nights, almost empty. Earlier that day, we saw one truck. That was it. We were sitting by the fire when we heard someone crashing through the woods. Someone was running. Fast. Branches snapping, heavy breathing. The sound was getting closer. Before we could even stand up, a guy burst out of the trees and almost fell into the fire. Mid-20s, dirty, no backpack, no flashlight, just a hoodie and jeans. He kept looking back over his shoulder, like something was about to come out of the woods behind him. Tyler jumped up and asked what was going on. The guy didn't answer at first. I was more annoyed than scared. I figured maybe drugs, or some kind of prank. But then I noticed something. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely stay on his feet. He was breathing like he'd been running for a long time, and he wasn't looking around randomly. He was staring at one specific spot in the woods, like he knew exactly where something was. We asked where his campsite was. He pointed over the ridge behind us. About a 10-minute walk. He said he came with 2 friends. At first, they heard footsteps around their tents. They thought it was an animal. Then someone started hitting the tent from the outside. Over and over. One of his friends unzipped the tent to shine a flashlight. And that's when it rushed past them. He said he only saw a shape. Tall, wrong. That was the word he used. Wrong. After that, they ran. He didn't know where the other 2 went. He just ran downhill until he saw our fire. Tyler and I looked at each other. It wasn't funny anymore. The woods behind him were dark. No moon. No sound. Total silence. We told him to sit down. Tyler handed him some water. He refused to sit. He stood right at the edge of the firelight, like he didn't want the darkness behind him. And then we heard it. One step, from the direction he had pointed. Slow, heavy, then another. The guy froze. Tyler turned off his flashlight. Only the fire was lighting the clearing now. Another step. Closer. Calm. No rushing. No branches snapping. Whatever it was. It wasn't running. It was walking. And it wasn't trying to hide. That's when the guy bolted. He ran past our tents toward the road. We yelled for him to stop. He didn't. He disappeared into the dark. And the footsteps stopped. Immediately. Like something had paused. Listening. Tyler quietly said we needed to pack up. I agreed. We started throwing everything into the truck. No order, just grabbing and loading. And then we heard it behind our tents. Breathing. Slow. Deep. The breathing was right behind the tents. Tyler froze and looked at me like he wanted to ask, "You hear that too?" I nodded. We didn't shout. We didn't turn on the flashlight right away. In moments like that, your brain thinks if you don't move, you won't be noticed. Then I heard something else. very quiet, like someone lightly touching the fabric of the tent. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 2:14. Only 7 minutes had passed. It felt like an hour. I whispered to Tyler that we were leaving right now. We packed faster, trying not to make too much noise, which sounds stupid because you can't load gear quietly. But we tried. I grabbed the keys, opened the truck door, and the breathing stopped. Just stopped. Tyler was already at the truck. He tossed in the last bag and said very quietly, "It's close." I didn't answer. I just got in and started the engine. The headlights came on and hit the trees. The gravel near our tents looked slightly pressed down, like someone had been standing there. I put the truck in reverse. We pulled out and headed toward the exit. I was driving way too fast. Tyler kept checking the side mirror. I asked if he saw anything. He said, "No." We didn't talk for the first 10 minutes. When we got home, I started searching online. Escaped inmate, violent incident, missing persons in that park, anything. I found nothing. 6 months passed. They never found that guy. As far as we know, they never even really looked. Because when park officials checked the area he described, there was no campsite, nothing. And not far from where he claimed they were camped, there's a massive cliff. There's no way someone would have run uphill, climbed rock like that without gear, and then made it around to us unnoticed. There were no reported missing people from that time, no open cases, no news. So who was that guy? Where did he go? And what actually happened out there that night? I still don't know. And I'm not sure I want to. This happened about 2 years ago. My cousin and I decided to go camping in a national forest we had never been to before. It wasn't a popular area. We had to drive down a dirt road for almost 40 minutes before we found a clearing that looked right. There was no reception, no houses nearby, no other cars in sight, just forest and a river. The first day was calm. We set up 2 tents, unfolded our cheap camping chairs, set up a small folding table, and placed the cooler underneath it. We built a small fire and just relaxed. Nothing strange. That night, I woke up once because I thought I heard footsteps on gravel, just slow steps. I assumed my cousin had stepped out to use the bathroom, but his tent was zipped, and I could hear him snoring. The steps lasted maybe 10 seconds, then silence. I didn't go out to check. I just went back to sleep. In the morning, everything looked normal, at least at first, until my cousin asked why I had moved his chair. I hadn't moved anything. One of the chairs was slightly turned, just angled a little toward the trees. We laughed. Maybe someone bumped into it. That's what we told ourselves. The second night, before bed, we checked everything. Cooler under the table, chairs side by side, fire completely out. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up again. This time I heard a different sound, a light scraping noise, like plastic sliding over gravel. I sat up and listened. It happened again. Short, careful, then silence. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the tent. The cooler was sitting about 6 feet away from the table, upright, closed, just moved. If it had been raccoons, the lid would have been open. If it had been a bear, the cooler would have been damaged. This looked like someone picked it up and placed it there. I scanned the area with the light. No one. No sound of someone running away. No branches snapping. The forest was completely still. I dragged the cooler back and didn't wake my cousin. In the morning, I asked him if he had gotten up during the night. He looked genuinely confused and said no. That's when we decided to test it. On the third night, before going to sleep, we took a picture of the entire campsite. The chairs, the table, the cooler, the fire pit, everything. We made sure everything matched the photo exactly. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up again. This time there were no footsteps, just the feeling that someone was standing somewhere beyond the moonlight. Then I heard gravel shift slowly, like someone walking very carefully, trying not to make noise. I didn't move. After a few seconds, I heard a faint metallic sound. Someone touched one of our cooking utensils. I unzipped the tent quickly and stepped out with the flashlight. No one. No one running. Just empty darkness. I kept the light on the tree line for a long time. Nothing. In the morning, we compared the campsite to the photo. 2 chairs were positioned differently, not random. They were turned toward the woods, and the cooler was no longer directly under the table. It was slightly angled toward what would later be the second clearing. We didn't know that yet. Later that day, we decided to walk deeper into the forest. About 5 minutes in, we reached another clearing. That's when things stopped making sense. There was another campsite there. 2 chairs, a fire pit, a folding table, and a cooler underneath it. Same layout, same spacing between the objects. Even the fire pit was placed in roughly the same spot. But there were no tents, no car, no personal belongings. Just the setup. The chairs looked like ours. Same cheap model, same color. The cooler looked very similar too. The worst part, one of the chairs was angled, directly toward our real campsite, like someone had been sitting there, watching. We didn't touch anything. We walked back quickly. When we reached our own site, everything looked the same as before, except for one thing. One chair had been turned again. Now it was facing the path we had just walked from. That's when we stopped joking. Nothing had been stolen. Things were just being moved, like someone wanted us to notice. That night we barely slept. We stayed inside the tents. Around 1 a.m, I heard a new sound. Breathing. Slow, steady. Close enough to know it wasn't far from the tent, just a few feet away. I didn't unzip it. I just waited. After about 30 seconds, it stopped. No sound of it leaving. Just silence. In the morning, we packed up quickly. While loading the car, I looked toward the woods. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing between the trees. Too still. Too upright. But when I focused, there was nothing there. We left. 6 months later, I went back with different friends. I found our original clearing, but the second one wasn't there. Nothing. I walked around for almost an hour trying to find it again. Nothing. No one in that area had ever heard of anything like that happening there.